I've just finished a family constellation session with a client who was actually in a different state, so we did it over video conference, and it's a really beautiful thing and always blows my mind, but never surprises me that the ancestors and the energy can come through to two people in completely different locations around the world. You know, there's a big distance between where they sat and where I sat, and it still came through as if they were sitting directly across from me. And once again, we found some extraordinary things in this system. The client was looking for some clarity, and they were looking for the energy to stop being blocked in the work that they were doing. And they also were hoping that their adult child would be able to reap some of the benefits of this, because they had a few things where the child was feeling blocked as well and couldn't quite get to where they wanted to go. So we didn't do it for the adult child, we did it for the client, who's the parent, but the adult child will reap the rewards of the clearing of the system that we did. And so once we set that intention of what it is that we wanted to do, we went and had a look at what was going on, and it was amazing to find down one line of the family tree, we found that a few things were going on there, and that line was around the Catholic Church, and there's so many contracts and so many curses and things that come into family systems that I find through this work when the church is involved. They're also a beautiful thing that churches bring. They bring the sense of community and a sense of faith, and there's a beautiful spiritual aspect, but there can also be in times gone past, and sometimes in this day and age as well. I'm not a part of a church, so I don't know, but there's good and tricky, good and entangled in everything that's out there. So I'm not opposed to churches as such, but I do find that when there's a religion in there, it can lead to a massive entanglement. And so it was really interesting to find the ancestor who was to come in and actually heal that. It was beautiful to watch. Then we went further down the same side of the family, but the other line, because there's two lines to each side of the family that I go down, and we found the real wound and entanglement that's sitting there from immigration. So leaving mother country, coming out to Australia those generations ago, and the massive impact it's got on holding people back, and the decisions that they're making to not actually live their full life, but to do what they felt responsible to do, what they lived the life of their parent and the one that their parent wanted them to live, instead of living their true life. So there's a lot of entanglements there that can come down to the client present day. And then we headed over to the other side, and because we'd had like a curse from the Catholic Church on this side, I was really surprised to find on the other side that there was witches involved on this side, and there was a suppression of women, and that women were never allowed to stand in their power. It was shown that women weren't able to stand in their power. They weren't left anything in the will. The brothers were getting everything handed down to them, and this was at a time where previously some women had received things when people had died. So it was all a bit strange, and there were some interesting deaths in the family that just didn't quite sound right to me. It wasn't a normal kind of death. There was a lot that had to happen for that moment, for that person to leave the planet, and I really wanted to explore that. And so what we found down that part of the system was that when a witch was burned at the stake all those generations ago, that she put a curse on the family who was standing there watching her burn for the witch that had never admitted that she was a witch. She kept herself quiet to stay safe, and what she'd done was she had placed a curse on the women, and that came down through the generations. And what was really interesting was that at the start when we looked at it, I said it feels like the women are suppressed by the men. So what this meant was in the system was that the women were never truly seen or acknowledged for who they really are. And that's a part of the witch wound that I've spoken about in a previous video, and this is how it showed up in this very family constellation, was that the witch that was being burned at the stake actually cursed another witch who'd never come out as being a witch, and so her gifts had been suppressed, and she did it to survive, but that curse that was put on her is actually still coming through the family system now, and it's why the client was never able to really step in and step up and do what she needed to do. And that was coming through her mother's line, and she felt the same way. Even though she'd always been the good girl, she'd always done the right thing, she still never received what was truly hers, because she was never seen as being worthy from the father. And that's what we found going down that line and the generations down there. So what happened in resolution of that session was quite beautiful, because we now have somebody who I'll be watching closely to see how their energy work comes in, because of the extraordinary healers that we saw down 3 branches of the family tree who really stepped forth. And some magic happened with the animals at my end of the animals that were coming through, and at the client's end as well. When the client is sitting there and we're connecting with this extraordinary ancestor of hers who holds such power, and a fox runs across her driveway as she's looking outside the window of where she's sitting. So there's a lot of magic in this work, and I love it. And if you would like to experience this work, please get in touch.